Welcome to My Life. We're going into part 2 with State Representative Brad Jacobsen. Thanks for being with us, Brad. It's really a pleasure.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Last time we were talking, I believe we concluded talking about your starting grade school here in Oxford. Mm-hmm. And what was going through my mind was you're so used to going to the family business every day, but now you're starting school. Was that a tough transition for you? Or was it an escape?
No, I always enjoyed school, so there was no problem with me doing that. But I mean, as a youth, a really youngster, I spent a lot of time at the store, and even I was working there on the weekends when I was in junior high, and after I got off the bus in junior high, if I could talk Mom into driving me down, she'd drive me down. I'd work 2 or 3 hours at the store and then ride home with Dad in the evening.
As you were getting into school, were you interested in sports or anything like that?
I always played baseball and such, but not really organized school sports. Something that perhaps a little bit of a downside of a family business is that you spent more time with the family business, sure, even as a youth. But I never was that interested in playing baseball or football at the high school, mm-hmm, at the school level. I wrestled one year with a couple of my buddies. We were seniors, and we said, well, we haven't done any sports. What are we going to do? And it's like, new wrestling team. Let's get on the wrestling team. It was not pretty. We had no idea what we were doing, but 1 year on the wrestling team.
Did you think at all about community service of any kind as you were going through grade school and middle school? Always interested in history, government, and through that, I think, public service. Dad was in the Lions Club. Still, he's a lifetime member of the Oxford Lions. And he used to I see him out selling white canes or Goodfellow newspapers on the street corners. Remember Dad was on a search committee one time with the Lions Club to go out and research families who maybe were going to get baskets at Christmas. And I remember coming home just depressed about some of the conditions he saw out there, and how concerned he was for those folks. So that kind of thing rubs off. My grandfather Shear on Mom's side was always interested in government, and I remember watching part of the '64 convention with Barry Goldwater from Grandpa's house when we were over there visiting one time. So I've always been interested in that, and my Terry's family, they've always been involved with local government, public service also. So my activities with the Rotary Club, and I'm not an active Elks member, but I'm an Elks Club mm-hmm member also. So you get rewards from what you give. Sure.
So pay it forward, sort of, I guess.
Was there anyone else in your family who was in organized politics of any kind? Not
on my side. Terry's father, Bill Patterson, who had the drugstore here in town, he'd been on the school board for many years. He'd been involved with the Chamber of Commerce. Terry's grandfather used to be, he was mayor of Clawson, I believe, mm-hmm, at one time. Terry's dad and grandfather both were Oakland County commissioners. So they'd been involved in government. And when I first ran for township board in, I think it was '83, I didn't really have an axe to grind. I wasn't against anybody necessarily or what they were doing. I just wanted to be becoming more involved and hopefully see Oxford develop into the warm, embracing community that I grew up in. So that's part of where I wanted to get involved. Just make sure Oxford was a good place that my kids would want to stay. And fortunately, one of my daughters is living here right now. I've got one in North Carolina, and my son's up in Gaylord, working up there
really?
Right now. Mm-hmm.
What is your son doing in Gaylord?
Well, he works at Treetops Resort.
Oh.
Not on the golf side, doggone it, because I'm a big golfer. He's works on their ski program. He's the lift and snow manager or something. I don't know, but he got a degree in recreational management from Central Michigan. He worked out in Utah at Deer Valley for I think 4 years, which is one of the premier ski resorts in the world. Learned most of his craft out there. Moved back here, and it's been a Gaylord with Treetops for 2 years, I think now.
Now, I think you briefly mentioned this before. You went to high school here in Oxford, but where was the high school when you began high school? The building itself.
Yeah, the building is the one on Pontiac Street, which
Okay.
is Oxford Elementary now.
Ah,
The
And-
old high school, where the fire hall is now, the Washington Street School, that my grandmother Jacobsen graduated from there. That was her high school. And maybe it was K through 12 at that time. She graduated from Oxford in 1922, I believe it was. So-
wow. Were we able to talk to her much
Sure.
about that?
Oh yeah. No, we, she got to see her great granddaughters. Yeah, I spent a lot of time with Grandma and Grandpa Jacobsen.
Now, you graduated from high school when?
79.
Okay. So,
Excuse me, 75. 79 was
75.
college.
Vietnam was winding down when you started high school, correct?
Yes. Yep. I still had to register for the draft, but everything was winding down, and I had thought about actually volunteering and going into the service out of high school, maybe MP school, something like that.
What
didn't.
what was going through your mind about a career as you were going through high school?
Well, I'd gotten more and more into government issues, political science, such, and I was thinking about law school or maybe being a history teacher. And then went off to Michigan State with basically a pre-law program through James Madison College at Michigan State, and after 4 years of that, and decided law school probably wasn't. I'd had enough education for a while, and came back to the family business.
Now, you married a gal from Oxford as well. When did you start to get to know your wife?
We started dating in high school. I'm going to get one of these two dates wrong because one of them's her birthday and one of them's our anniversary of our first date. So March 23rd, I think, was our first date, and it was for her birthday, which is March 27th.
Okay. I want to talk more about that in a moment, but we'll be right back.
There's a lot of history to Oxford. Hidden around every corner, deep in every crack, and sometimes right in front of you, waiting to be discovered. If you just dig a little, you'll find the great history of our beautiful town. Welcome to historic Oxford.
Back with Brad Jacobsen. We were just talking, Brad, about when you met your wife. And let's see if you give me the same date again. Go ahead. When did you have your first date?
March 23rd, I believe, was our first date. March 27th, I believe, is her birthday, because we went out on a double date for her birthday.
Okay, what year of high school would you have been in? then?
I was a sophomore.
Okay, very good. And so her family owned Patterson
Pharmacy,
Pharmacy.
right here in downtown Oxford.
Was she really involved with that business like you were with the flower business?
She had worked there some when she was. She worked there after school when she was in junior high and high school. At one time, they had a soda fountain there, and they used to make sodas and such. But she ran the back counter on the weekends and after school. She originally went to University of Michigan with the idea of going to pharmacy school. Decided that wasn't for her and went into speech therapy instead.
Really?
And she's been a speech therapist in Lake Orion schools for, I believe, 38 years now.
Did she go to college where you went?
No, she went to University of Michigan, I think, for 2 years, and Eastern Michigan for 3 years.
I see.
Her degrees from Eastern Michigan, which is a fantastic teacher school in the state. We're very fortunate. We have a lot of great universities.
We do.
I talk to people, from around the country at various seminars I go to and such. And a degree from any Michigan school carries a lot of weight.
Okay, so you got out of college. Did you come right back to the flower shop?
I did.
Did you get married right out of college?
I was a year out of college. Got graduated in 79, got married in 80. I do have to tell you, since we're talking stories.
Sure.
Interesting story about Michigan State. So I'm taking pre-law, business education, or business management courses, economics, and I had some electives left over. So I thought, well, I should take a basic entomology course, bugs, a basic plant disease course, a basic horticulture course. I should take a couple of those with these extra credits I've got. It's okay with my advisor. So I went to the horticulture department and they said, no, you can't do that. You don't have physiology, you don't have the correct natural science prerequisites. And I said, well, and I explained to them my situation. I'd grown up in the business and I knew all this stuff, and I you take it pass fail. I don't care. No, you can take this course. And it was like Introduction to Green Plants 101. And I got my papers, I went in there and I sat through the first lecture, and I thought, I can teach this class right now. So I got my money back and I took another advertising class instead. So here I am, a lifetime horticulture person, and I spent 1 hour in botany at Michigan State. Premier agricultural school, and that's all I spent.
They should have let you teach, for crying out loud. Paid your tuition.
That would have been nice. That would have been interesting.
So, when you got out of Michigan State, then did you go right back to the family business?
Yep, came right back, and shortly after I was back and working in the family business, I had a couple people approach me about running for school board here in Oxford, and Terry's dad had been on the school board. Her brother, I think just a little later, was on the school board. And I said, I don't want anything to do with the school board. I said, well, you'd be good at it. He says, well, somebody's always mad at the school board. Parents, teachers, students, administrators. It seems there's a controversy at the school. I said, maybe I'll run for the township board where once in a while everybody will be happy. So that's what I did. So I ran, just a couple years out of, 4 years out of college, 3 years after getting married, I ran for the township board and was elected.
So that was your first elected office.
Yep.
What did you think about that?
It was interesting. It was fascinating. I particularly liked that you knew what was going on, and that's still all the way through all my elected positions. I always enjoyed the idea that I know what's going on, and I have a finger on the pulse of what's going on in my community, or what's going on at the county or at the state. We couldn't go to a restaurant in town at that time without somebody saying, or at the grocery and say, what's going on? What are they bulldozing that corner over there for? What's going to go up there? Or I heard something about we were buying some new police cars. What do you know about that? And it was rewarding to be able to be information to the community and still know what was going on.
I would imagine it was also a way for you to be kind of protective of your community and not to let some things into it that you felt might not be so good.
Well, there was a lot of discussion at those days about the term urban sprawl. And, we had friends that lived in Sterling Heights. We had some friends that lived in Warren. I didn't want to see Oxford turn into a Sterling Heights or Warren. Not that those communities don't have their pluses, but it seemed like it was just block upon block, square block of houses, main thoroughfares, and growing up out here, enjoying the nature and what Oxford provided, the farm fields and such, I think I want to try to maintain as much of that as we could out here. So when I was on the board, although I never sat on the planning commission itself, I did chair the water and sewer committee for a number of years when I was on the township board. And through that, and we were able to craft development. A lot of the Waterstone area was developed right towards the end of the time I was on the township board. A number of the shopping centers in the area here were developed at that time. And we did some master plans while I was there. The planning commission did and then the board, we had our 2 cents worth to add to it. So we could see that, we had natural beauty here. We had the lakes. We wanted to work around. You find very few straight roads once you leave the village. I think that's largely a matter of how we planned. I say we, the collective of Oxford Township government people, to have more appealing subdivisions, a lot of green space. You look at the amount of open space that are in some of our subdivisions here. It's really quite terrific. Lakes of Indianwood was developed at that time. We put in the water systems. We got the safety paths started developing at that time. So there was the township board, the planning commission, I think, did a terrific job at that time planning for where we are today.
Now, what year did you conclude your term on that?
2000.
Okay, so that's when you were elected state representative, right?
No, 2000 I ended up going to the, I sat out for a couple of years, and then I went to the county commission in 2006. So I was at the Oakland County Commission from 2006 to 2010.
And you were state representative
From 10 to 16.
Okay, very good. So for a couple of years there, you did not hold an elected office.
Right. At that time, I was actually busy in Lake Orion working on their Downtown Development Authority, and I was chairman of the Downtown Development Authority in Lake Orion for some time.
Okay. And I thought you were just kicking back.
No,
I'm just kidding.
There might have been a year or two in there somewhere.
Hang on. We'll be back in just a moment with Brad Jacobsen.
Canine Stray Rescue is Oxford's own local dog rescue. Each year they take in hundreds of dogs and bring them into suitable homes. A certified nonprofit organization, Canine Dog Rescue strives to give pound dogs a new leash on life. To donate, adopt, or even volunteer, call them at 248-628-0435 or go to their website, dogsaver.org, and click on the Canine Stray Rescue League link.
Back with Brad Jacobsen. Brad, we've got one more segment left here, and I've got to talk to you about your experience as a state representative. As you look back on your life right now, on the community and political things you've been involved with, is that pretty much at the top of the list for you?
I guess it probably is. It's certainly the freshest in my memory, but it afforded me a tremendous amount of opportunities, a lot of things that it opens doors for you to become involved in, and people to meet, things to see, places to go.
What got you going with that?
Well, it was at the end of my run at the county commission. Jim Marlowe was our state rep. He was term limited out, was planning on running for the Senate. The seat was going to be open, and it was just sort of mine laying there for me to snatch. And so I decided to run that and then do it in the next step up the ladder from the county commission. A county commission was a fascinating position also. But the state rep, when I was in college at Michigan State, I did my college internship in the House for a gentleman named Mel Larson, who was our state representative. He lived down the street from me on Beamer Court. I live on Tanview. He was around the corner. And so I spent a summer of college working in his office in Lansing. So, and at that time, he was running for Secretary of State against Richard Austin. So I was very heavily involved in his campaign, doing a variety of things. But that sort of got the Lansing juices going, I guess, a little bit, being there in college. So
You learned the ropes early, didn't you?
I had an idea what was going on early, yes. But, you know, and it's interesting, when you get elected into Lansing, as a state rep, the wave that came in when I did in 10, 11, we had a tremendous amount of business people, people with life experience coming into the legislature. We'd just come off what's referred to by some as the lost decade, where we had 10 years of relatively bad economy, losing population, people moving out of state, businesses suffering and such. And there was quite a wave of business-oriented people with life experience coming into Lansing. And I feel very fortunate that I was able to come in and do that. And we had quite a very tight and cohesive group that realized you have to make a budget. You have to follow a budget. You can't spend more than you take in. And we all were sort of in the same mindset, and we're able to get a lot of things done. And Governor Snyder came in, and, you know, the accountant nerd's done a great job. You know, whether you personally, I think he's a terrific guy. He's very personable. He's very intelligent. Done a great job for the state, I think. What we see now with some of the people coming into office are individuals who either, I always warn people when we talk election time, and they say, Brad, what do you think of this candidate? What do you think of that? Whatever. And I'll give them my 2 cents worth about the individual, but I always warn them. I says, you have to look at the motivation, why that person's running for office. Right now in Lansing, in the last election, last two, there's been a lot of people who have been elected who are there because they need a job. They need a job. A number of the people in Lansing right now have never made payroll. They've never had to pay bills, if you would, like a business person would. Many of them are former legislative staffers. So they understand how Lansing works, but they don't understand how the economy works or the world works in some respects. Mm-hmm. So I always warn people, look at why the people are running. And the school board is a great example. And I use this made-up example. There's no real person attached to this. But you've got somebody whose son got kicked off the baseball team. And they're all upset with that coach. And boy, I'm going to get back at that guy. I'm going to get him fired. He didn't treat my son right. So he runs for school board, maybe gets elected. Then all of a sudden he realizes, well, I can't get rid of the coach by myself. And when you get on the other side of the table, things look a whole lot different. And before long, he has no interest in going to board meetings. He doesn't know how to read a budget, perhaps. And he ends up being dead weight on the school board. So look at why somebody's running for office. If they've got an axe to grind and that's why they're running, that's a big red flag to me. We had a lady who was on the township board with me at one time, and she was a firebrand. She was going to change things, shake things up. And within about 6 months after she got elected to the board, we were just chatting, and she says, you know, it's a whole lot different on this side of the table when you've got all the facts in front of you. When I'm getting confidential information from the attorney that's not public knowledge, it's a whole lot different when you're sitting over here. And so look at the people.
Sure. Despite your previous experience working for a representative in Lansing while you were in college, were there any surprises once you actually became an elected representative yourself?
the amount of time it takes to get things accomplished was longer than I had anticipated. I should have been prepared for it because, you know, I use this example. At the greenhouse, if we needed a new set of tires, we'd buy a new set of tires. And if we couldn't afford 4 tires, we'd buy 2 tires, and we'd buy 2 tires a month later. At the township, if we needed a set of tires, we'd have to go out for proposals, and it might take us 4 months to buy a set of tires. I'm being a little facetious here. In Lansing, if you got to buy a set of tires, you have to have a commission to study it first. And that's almost as bad as it is at times, trying to get something passed. I was asked by the governor's office a few years ago to do a rewrite of our Outdoor Advertising Act, billboards basically. We were out of sync with federal regulations, and they were talking about withholding $100 million plus from our road funds if we didn't get our outdoor advertising in sequence with federal law. So we started working on that. It took us almost an entire full 2 years to get that done, and then in an additional year we had to make a few tweaks to some stuff that we didn't get finished. But it took us 2 years to rewrite our Outdoor Advertising Act, and that took up a tremendous amount of my staff time and my time, and lots of meetings over 2 years just to get that done.
We could go on and on and on. I know you've got some great stories to tell, and I'd love it if we could sit here and talk about them. But unfortunately, we're running out of time. There's one thing that I have to ask you, sitting here now. If you could change anything about today's politics, what would it be?
We need to have our elected officials need to be more cooperative with each other. And I think partially it's a matter of us as voters trying to select those people that are not at one extreme or the other. When I was campaigning for the House, people say, oh, I'm not going to vote. You guys never get along. No, Lansing, we get along often. Washington, they never get along. And you don't get things accomplished if you're not willing to sit down and talk to each other. A line that you hear, and Mr. Patterson used to use it all the time, you can disagree without being disagreeable. I love a good spirited argument. You can stick to your principles and I'll stick to mine, and we'll go tooth and nail. But at the end of the day, we need to shake hands, be able to be friends, and accomplish something else together to work for the betterment of the community, of society. There's too much people working themselves into a corner. I always used to tell people, you know, particularly I've had a lot of people who want to run for office talk to me, and I've counseled a lot of folks who are looking at running. I'll say, you never say never. Because the minute you say, well, I will never vote for this, it'll appear in a quote 5 years from now when maybe you've sort of realized that you had the wrong position. Keep your mind open. Be willing to talk to each other, get things accomplished. You know, we're looking at the gubernatorial elections coming up this fall. Some of those candidates have painted themselves into corners already. You need to look for somebody who's willing to give a and a little take. Still keep to your principles, but you got to move the ball down the field. You don't accomplish, and I've always been a believer that 75% is better than nothing.
Yeah.
So do what you can, get things done, keep the ball moving, and keep Michigan growing.
I'll vote for that. Brad Jacobsen, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
See you next time.
Yeah.